The ghost of our house visits me most nights. It's not a scary ghost, it's a sad one. It shows me things I can no longer touch. I see the notch on the kitchen doorframe where we marked our son's height, a ladder of pencil lines climbing towards a future that never happened. I can feel the worn spot on the arm of the living room sofa where I used to sit, the weight of our daughter leaning against me as we watched a movie, her small hand clutching a bowl of popcorn. I can smell the lavender my wife planted along the walkway, a scent that meant I was home, I was safe. A house is supposed to be the safest asset, the bedrock of a family's financial life. It's more than wood and nails, it's a vault for your memories, the ultimate insurance against the storms of the world. Mine was. It was our fortress. We had bought it when we were young, a modest suburban home that felt like a palace to us. For 12 years, we poured our lives into it. I laid the hardwood floors myself, my knees aching but my heart full. She painted every room, her clothes speckled with colors, her laughter echoing in the empty spaces that we slowly filled with a life, our life. The mortgage was our biggest debt, but it felt like a good debt, an investment in stability in our children's future. Every payment was a victory, a brick laid in the foundation of our security. I had a good job, a steady sales position at a software company. It wasn't glamorous, it didn't involve chasing unicorns like some tech startups, but it paid the bills. It provided a comfortable life, a predictable income, a clear path forward. We had a budget we stuck to, a savings plan, a college fund that was slowly growing. We were the responsible ones, the ones who did everything right. But a quiet dissatisfaction had taken root in me. I saw friends in finance and tech making explosive gains. They talked about the stock market, about their portfolios, about passive income streams. My steady salary started to feel like a slow crawl in a world that was sprinting. The idea of just working for 40 years to pay off a mortgage felt like a trap, a life sentence of mediocrity. I wanted more. I wanted a shortcut. That's when I discovered Forex trading. It wasn't like buying shares in a company. It felt more dynamic, more intelligent. It was the pulse of the global economy, a 24/7 river of money, and I was convinced I could learn to navigate its currents. I started with a small demo account, playing with fake money. It was a game, and I was good at it. Then I moved to a live account, depositing a few $1,000s, money I told my wife was for a high-risk, high-reward investment. The initial thrill was electric. I made a few $100s on a single trade while sitting on my commute. It felt like I had found a secret loophole in the system. The obsession began to grow, slowly at first, then all at once. My phone was no longer for calls from clients or texts from my wife. It was a portal to the market. I checked it constantly, my mood rising and falling with the flickering lines on the chart. I started staying up late, watching the London session open, my mind buzzing with strategies and indicators. My wife noticed the change. I was physically present but mentally a million miles away, lost in a world of pips and leverage. She would try to talk to me about her day, about the kids, and I would nod and murmur, but my real attention was on the currency pair I was tracking. I was becoming a ghost in my own home, haunting the hallways at night, illuminated by the glow of my screen. The small wins started to accumulate, feeding my ego, convincing me that I had a special talent for this. I started to see my job, my reliable salary, as an obstacle, a waste of time that I could be spending trading. I saw our house, our beautiful, safe house, not just as a home, but as an asset, an untapped reservoir of capital. That was the most dangerous thought I ever had. It started as a whisper in the back of my mind. What if I could use the equity in our house? We had paid down a significant portion of our mortgage over the years. That equity was just sitting there, dormant, earning nothing. What if I could put it to work in the market? I could make enough to pay off the entire mortgage in a single year, maybe less. We could be free. The idea terrified me, but it also thrilled me. It was the ultimate risk, the ultimate shortcut. I began to research, to plan. I saw a setup forming in the market, a convergence of political and economic factors that pointed to a massive, predictable move. It felt like a sure thing, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. All I needed was the capital to make it count. I knew my wife would never agree. She was the cautious one, the guardian of our stability. Her entire worldview was built on the idea of slow, steady progress, of avoiding unnecessary risk. To her, the house was sacred, untouchable. So I made the decision that would unravel my entire world. I decided to do it without telling her. I went to the bank alone. I told the loan officer that I was remortgaging the house to fund a home renovation project, an extension we had talked about in passing. The paperwork was surprisingly easy. A few signatures, a few weeks of waiting, and then it was done. A huge sum of money, the very essence of our home's security, was deposited into my bank account. It felt unreal, like a movie. I remember sitting in my car in the bank's parking lot, staring at the number on my banking app. It was more money than I had ever seen in one place. It felt like pure power. I transferred the entire amount into my trading account. The guilt was a cold knot in my stomach, but I pushed it down, burying it under a mountain of justifications. I was doing this for them. I was taking this risk so that they would never have to worry about money again. I was being the provider, the hero who would single-handedly secure our family's future. I walked back into my house that evening, our house, the one I had just secretly wagered on a currency fluctuation. My wife greeted me with a kiss. My kids ran to hug me, and I smiled, playing the part of the loving husband and father while carrying the biggest, most toxic secret of my life. I had turned our fortress into a casino chip, and I was about to place it all on a single bet. The week leading up to the trade was the longest of my life. I was living a double life, a lie of omission that felt heavier each day. By day, I was the dependable husband and father going to work, helping with homework, mowing the lawn. But at night, after my family was asleep, I became someone else. I was a high-stakes speculator, a man staring into the digital abyss, planning a move that would either make us royalty or make us homeless. The guilt was a constant, physical presence. Every time my wife smiled at me, every time my daughter told me she loved me, it was a knife twisting in my gut. I was betraying their trust in the most profound way imaginable. I had taken the very ground beneath their feet, the symbol of all our shared work and dreams, and I had thrown it onto the gambling table without their knowledge. I justified it with a feverish intensity. I told myself that true betrayal would be letting this opportunity pass, condemning us to a life of mediocrity and financial struggle. This wasn't a gamble. It was a calculated certainty. My analysis was flawless. I had back-tested the strategy 100 times. I had read every piece of news, every analyst's report. I was so convinced I was right that the possibility of failure seemed like a distant, statistical anomaly, a risk so small it was barely worth considering. This, I told myself, was the ultimate form of risk management, taking one large, decisive risk to eliminate all smaller risks forever. The night I placed the trade, the house was quiet. A storm was raging outside, the wind rattling the window panes of my home office. It felt fitting, a reflection of the turmoil inside me. I had the trade parameters loaded, the full weight of our home's equity ready to be deployed on a single bet against the Australian dollar. My finger hovered over the mouse, a moment of hesitation that felt like an eternity. This was it, the point of no return. I thought of my wife sleeping peacefully in our bed upstairs, completely unaware that our entire life was hanging in the balance right here in this room. I clicked the button. The order was executed. The trade was live. An immediate, profound sense of relief washed over me, so powerful it almost made me dizzy. The decision was made. The weight of the secret was lifted, replaced by the clean, sharp adrenaline of the trade itself. Now all I could do was watch. The first few hours were a dream. The market moved exactly as I had predicted. The price dropped and my profits started to climb at a staggering rate. The numbers on the screen were hypnotic, a cascade of green that represented freedom. I saw the mortgage being paid off. I saw new cars. I saw exotic vacations. I saw my wife's face, a look of shock turning into pure joy as I revealed what I had done, not as a confession of a terrible secret, but as the unveiling of a magical gift. By dawn, I was up by an amount that would have taken me 3 years to earn at my regular job. I felt like a king, a master of the universe. The arrogance was intoxicating. I had seen the future, and I had bent it to my will. I had conquered the market. The doubt and guilt I had felt were distant memories, the foolish anxieties of a lesser man. I almost closed the trade then. I had already made a life-altering amount of money, but greed is a powerful drug. My initial target, the number that I had calculated would change everything, was still a little way off. I told myself not to be emotional, to stick to the plan. The analysis was sound. The trend was strong. Letting it run to the target was the disciplined, professional thing to do. I made coffee and watched the sunrise, feeling invincible. I watched my wife and kids come downstairs for breakfast, and I had to physically restrain myself from telling them, from shouting that all our worries were over. The secret was a joyful one now, a surprise party I was planning for them. I just needed to wait a few more hours. I went into my office to check the position. And then my heart stopped. A single, unexpected headline had just crossed the news wire. The Reserve Bank of Australia had called an emergency press conference. Central banks are the gods of the Forex market. They can change the entire landscape with a few words. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through my euphoric haze. This wasn't part of the plan. This wasn't in my analysis. I watched the live feed of the press conference, my blood turning to ice. The governor announced a massive, unexpected stimulus package, a move designed to strengthen the currency. It was the exact opposite of what the market expected. It was a black swan event, a lightning strike from a clear blue sky. On my other screen, I watched the chart. I saw the price of the Australian dollar freeze for a millisecond, and then it exploded upwards. It wasn't a rally, it was a detonation. A single, brutal, vertical green candle that erased my entire profit in less than 2 seconds. And it didn't stop. It kept going, ripping through my entry point and deep into the red. The numbers on my screen turned from a beautiful green to a horrifying blood red. My losses were mounting at a speed I couldn't comprehend. 10,000, 50,000, 100,000. It was the sound of my life being vaporized. My mind was screaming, a primal, silent scream. I fumbled for the mouse, my hand shaking uncontrollably. I tried to click the close position button, but I was paralyzed, watching the slaughter in a state of horrified disbelief. This couldn't be happening. My perfect plan, my flawless analysis, it was all gone. The broker's system saved me from going into negative territory. A margin call automatically liquidated my position, closing the trade at the worst possible price. The violence was over, the screen was still, and the final number was there. A near-total loss. The equity of our house, 12 years of payments, of sacrifice, of dreams, gone, wiped out in less than a minute. I just sat there in the silent aftermath, the storm outside having passed. The sun was streaming through the window, illuminating a room that was suddenly a crime scene, and I was the sole perpetrator. The secret I was so excited to reveal had transformed into something monstrous, something that I knew with a sickening certainty was going to destroy everything I had ever loved. The house felt different after that. It was as if the money, the very idea of its value, had been a structural component, and now that it was gone, the walls were weaker, the air was thinner. I walked out of my office and back into a life that was now a lie. My wife was in the kitchen, making lunches for the kids, humming a song. The sheer, brutal normalcy of the scene was a form of torture. How could the world just keep going? How could she be humming when our world had just been obliterated? She looked up at me and smiled, and in that moment I felt a wave of self-loathing so intense it almost brought me to my knees. The lie was a poison, and it was killing me. I couldn't keep it in. I had to confess. I waited until the kids had left for school. The house was quiet again. I asked her to sit down at the kitchen table, the place where we made all our important family decisions. The look of confusion on her face, the slight worry in her eyes, is burned into my memory. I told her everything. The words came out in a clumsy, broken rush. I told her about the remortgage, the secret, the trade. I told her I had risked our house and I had lost it all. I watched as the words hit her. I saw the color drain from her face. I saw her mind trying to process the impossible. The confusion turned to disbelief, the disbelief to a dawning, horrified understanding. She didn't yell, she didn't scream. Her reaction was far worse. It was a profound and terrifying silence. She just stared at me, her eyes wide with a pain so deep I couldn't bear to look at them. And then she said the words that shattered what was left of my soul. "You didn't just lose our money," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You lost us. You took our home, our children's home, and you gambled it away behind my back. Who are you?" That question hung in the air between us, unanswerable. I wasn't the man she thought I was. I was a liar, a gambler, a fool who had destroyed his own family out of greed and arrogance. From that moment on, I was living with a stranger. She was my wife, but she wasn't. We coexisted in the same space, but we were separated by a chasm of betrayal. The easy affection, the shared jokes, the physical touch, it all vanished. She looked at me with a mixture of pity and contempt. I was a disaster she had to manage, a problem she had to solve for the sake of the children. The practical consequences of my failure arrived with brutal speed. The first letter from the bank was a polite reminder that our new, much larger mortgage payment was due. We couldn't pay it. We had no savings. My income alone couldn't even cover the interest. The polite reminders became urgent demands. Then came the foreclosure notice, a certified letter that felt like a death certificate for our life. It stated in cold, legal language that if we did not pay the arrears, the bank would repossess our home. Our home. The word felt like a mockery. It wasn't ours anymore. I had given it away. We had to tell the children we were losing the house. It was the hardest conversation of my life. How do you explain foreclosure to a child? How do you explain that the place they feel safest in the world is being taken away because of a mistake their father made? We told them we had to move, that we would find a new, smaller place to live. I saw the fear and confusion in their eyes, and I knew that my betrayal was a generational one. I had not just broken my wife's trust, I had broken my children's sense of security in the world. The house became a prison of shame. Every wall accused me. Every memory was tainted. The laughter of our past echoed like a taunt. My wife started packing boxes, not with the excited energy of a new beginning, but with the grim, silent efficiency of a funeral director. She was packing up our life, sorting it into what could be kept and what had to be left behind. She was separating her life from mine. One evening, I came home from work to find her sitting on a packed suitcase in the hallway. Her sister was there, her car parked in the driveway. My wife wouldn't look at me. She just said, "I'm taking the kids to my sister's for a while. They need to be somewhere stable, somewhere away from this." I knew what for a while meant. It meant forever. I tried to protest, to plead, but my words were empty. I had no right to ask anything of her. I had forfeited that right when I forged her name on a loan application, when I lied to her face for months. I hugged my children goodbye. They were crying, not understanding why their world was being torn in two. My daughter clutched my leg and begged me to come with them. That was the moment I finally broke. The tears I had been holding back for weeks finally came, hot and shameful. I was the monster in their story, the reason their family was falling apart. I stood on the porch of the house that was no longer mine and watched them drive away. I watched as my wife, my children, my entire reason for being, disappeared down the street. The house was empty now, filled with boxes and echoes. I was completely and utterly alone, a king with no kingdom, a husband with no wife, a father with no children. I had lost the trade, I had lost the money, and now I had lost everything that had ever given my life meaning. And the worst part, the part that haunts me to this day, is that I had no one to blame but myself. After they left, the foreclosure process felt like a mercy killing. The final weeks in the house were a surreal purgatory. I slept on a mattress on the floor in the empty living room, surrounded by the ghosts of furniture and the faint outlines on the walls where our family pictures used to hang. I was a squatter in my own life. The day the sheriff came to execute the eviction was strangely peaceful. It was an end to the uncertainty. I walked away with a single suitcase filled with clothes and a cardboard box of personal items. As I looked back at the house for the last time, I didn't feel anger or even sadness anymore. I just felt a profound, hollow emptiness. I was a man who had been completely erased. I had no home, no family, and a credit score so toxic it was a biohazard. My respectable job felt like a cruel joke. I was advising clients on financial software, a man drowning in debt pretending to be a lifeguard. I quit. I couldn't live the lie anymore. I sold my car, paid off a few urgent bills, and with a few $100s in my pocket, I boarded a bus and left the city where I had built and destroyed my life. I needed to disappear. I landed in a small, forgotten town a few states away, a place where no one knew my name or my story. I rented a cheap room by the week in a rundown motel that smelled of bleach and regret. My new life was a world away from the manicured lawns and corporate boardrooms I had once known. I found work as a handyman. It was the only thing that made sense. After so much time spent in the abstract world of digital money, I had a desperate need to work with my hands again to fix things that were broken. I repaired leaky faucets, patched drywall, and painted fences. The work was hard and humbling. My clients weren't wealthy homeowners. They were elderly people on fixed incomes, single mothers struggling to get by. Their budgets were tight. Their problems were real. They worried about a broken water heater, not a dip in the stock market. For the first time, I understood the real meaning of financial pressure. It wasn't about missing a profit target. It was about choosing between paying for a prescription or fixing the car you needed to get to work. I saw my old self in them, but a funhouse mirror version. I used to chase wealth to eliminate worry, but I had created a catastrophe. These people with so little managed their worries with a quiet dignity and resilience I had never possessed. They were the true masters of risk management. I lived simply. I had no credit cards, no loans, no investments. My entire financial world consisted of the cash I earned and the cash I spent. I was rebuilding from below zero. After a few months, I started sending a small money order to my wife's sister's address every Friday. It was a pathetic amount, barely a gesture. I didn't even know if she would accept it. I didn't include a note or a return address. It was an anonymous act of atonement. One day, I got a call from an unknown number. It was her. She had tracked me down through my old mobile number, which I had kept for some reason. Her voice was different, less angry, just tired. She told me she had been receiving the money orders. She didn't thank me, but she didn't tell me to stop either. We talked for a few minutes. It was awkward, stilted. She told me about the kids. My son had made the soccer team. My daughter had won an award for a story she wrote. Hearing about their lives, these small victories that I wasn't there to witness, was a sweet and agonizing pain. That call became a weekly routine. We would talk for a little longer each time. The anger in her voice was slowly being replaced by something else, something I couldn't name. Maybe it was just acceptance. I told her about my life, my job as a handyman. I didn't try to romanticize it. I told her it was hard, that I was lonely, but that I was paying my bills. I was standing on my own 2 feet, however low to the ground they were. She never talked about forgiveness, and I never asked for it. It was too much to hope for. But we were talking. A thin, fragile thread of connection was being woven across the distance between us. A few months ago, she asked if I wanted to talk to the kids. My heart hammered against my ribs. I hadn't heard their voices in almost 2 years. Talking to them was the hardest and most beautiful thing I have ever done. They were older, their voices deeper. They asked me questions I couldn't answer, like when I was coming home. I just told them I loved them and that I was working very hard to fix the mistakes I had made. I'm still in that small town. I'm still a handyman. I recently started my own small repair business. It's just me and a used truck I bought with cash. My income is a tiny fraction of what it once was, but it's mine. It's real. I haven't lost a house. I've helped people stay in theirs by fixing what's broken. My biggest mistake cost me everything I thought I wanted. It cost me my house, my wealth, and the life I had built. But in the rubble, I found something I didn't even know I had lost. I found humility. I found the value of honest work. I found a quiet sense of purpose in fixing things, not just for others, but for myself. I don't know if I'll ever get my family back. I don't know if I deserve to. But for the first time since that terrible day, I have something that looks a little like hope. It's not the flashy, arrogant hope of a gambler hitting a jackpot. It's a quieter, more durable hope, the kind you build with your own 2 hands, one small, honest repair at a time. I want to hear from you. What did you think of this story? Comment down below along with your country. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, share with friends, and subscribe for more content like this.